Good day and welcome to another lecture on web application development. And today we are going to continue from where we stopped in the last lecture. So in the last lecture we are able to do the HTML basic structure for the header. So right now we are going to graduate to another section entirely, and the section starts all the way from this picture you are seeing here, the mobile application development picture, which we call the banner, down to this simple animation here. So we are going to start designing from this picture, starting for our banner, down to web hosting for modern era, go serverless and pay online for what you use, down to this little simple animation picture. So I'll be categorizing all of these that I mentioned to you as belonging to only one section. Then the other section can start from this blue decorated container. Okay, so right now I will begin by creating a section tag. Okay, so moving straight on to our HTML. Okay, and this is where we stopped the last time. So right now I'm going to collapse this area. So make sure you close the header tag and begin another tag entirely, which we call section. So section, just as the name implies, is an HTML5 tag describing the fact that you are grouping everything that will be in between this tag as belonging to one and only one section, which is demarcated by this section tag. Okay, so having said that, what is the first thing you want to create? We want to create this picture you are seeing here, then followed by the web hosting for modern era. For that reason, we will begin by using the img tag. Okay, and the name of the picture is mobile.png, but remember that we have all of those pictures inside the images folder, and you will see mobile.png, which of course is here. If you click on mobile.png, you get a chance to see the picture, and this is the picture that I am currently linking to. You can test it, test the part if it's correct by control and click here. Then you can see it takes you straight here. All right, so that is what I am currently linking to. I'm going to collapse this so that I can take advantage of the space remaining here. Okay, so moving on, you want to, as usual, give it on some alternate information in case the picture does not get the opportunity to show due to one reason or the other. So we want to say server graphics, just to say that we have some graphics going on here. Okay, then most importantly, you want to give it a class of server so that we can get an opportunity to talk to it in our CSS class. Okay, so having done all of those, what is the next thing? Now we are done with this picture part. Then the remaining is web hosting for modern era, and we are going to make that one to be inside a paragraph tag. So followed immediately by the picture tag, we have a paragraph here, and the paragraph is going to have a class of subhead so that we can style it. Okay, then you want to type whatever you want to type it. So in our case, is going to be go serverless and pay for what you use, and pay for what you use. Okay, but before this go serverless and pay for what you use, we have this, and you can see it's very thick and dark compared to the one below it, and that's the reason why we make that one to be in heading1 tag. Okay, so before the paragraph we have another word at the top here, and we're going to put it inside the heading1 tag. So over here you can type web hosting for the modern era. Okay, and that is it. So that means we are done with these two. in our HTML. We are done with these two in our HTML. And the last, you'll see that something is mixing here is because I'm in the mobile view. If you decide to go onto the desktop view, then you will see that we have a picture here that is animated. So I need to put that picture there, okay, even though the picture won't get the opportunity to show when we are in mobile view, because we are going to write some scripts for that. Okay, so I haven't done that. I need to make use of another img tag, and over here in the img tag, the name of that picture is arrowdown.png, and if you come straight here and click on arrowdown.png, you get an opportunity to see the picture. Okay, so that's the picture I want to link to, and remember it's inside images, then arrowdown.png, and of course you want to give it some alternate information in case the picture does not get the opportunity to show due to one reason or the other. And in this case, I just want to give it scroll down, something like that, so that at least they get the opportunity to read that they need to scroll down to see more. Okay, in case the arrow does not show. So moving on further, I am giving it a class so that I can be able to talk to it in my CSS for the animation part. Okay, so I'm giving it scroll, the name of the class, and most especially I want to give it another class, making two classes, and this is going to be hide mobile, meaning that I wouldn't want this picture to show when I'm in the mobile view. Okay, and I'm giving it another class, which of course is going to be show desktop, meaning that I would want this picture to show when I am in the desktop view. So making how many classes altogether? 3 classes only to that image alone, and that is going to mark the end of this section that I have just created. Okay, and you can hit on Ctrl S to save your job, and if you come back here, okay, okay, let's right click here and say open with live server. Okay, so you can at least see the picture now. Okay, and if you scroll down, you can see the picture is very big, and you can see the last picture and the two that we wrote. Okay, so that's good. Now we are done with this part. Just the let me close this. So we are done with this section. So if I will be creating another section now, it will be this blue background section. Okay, so that will be the next thing that I am going to be creating. And so let us stop the lecture here and move on to the next section, where I will be creating this blue background, just the HTML. Okay, so once again, I want to thank you for staying tuned up to the end of this lecture. Thank you. So welcome to another lecture on web application development, and we are going to be starting from where we stopped in the last lecture. And if you remember, we stopped where we finished this section. Okay, so I'm going to begin another section here, which of course is going to be for this blue background container. Okay, but I'm going to be doing it in a slightly different way. If you take a look at where we started, you will discover that everything up to this point is inside container, and if you click on this div here and scroll down, you will see this is the end of that div. Okay, so right now I want to be creating another separate div for this blue background container, and the reason is because I do not want the settings I will be giving to this container to be the same with the settings I will be giving to this blue background container. So I decided to make use of another separate container, but at the same time I will still be making use of this container class as a sub container. So this is what I mean in essence. So I'm going to be creating another div, and this div is going to be blue container. So I'm creating another div here, and it's going to be blue container. Okay, so this is the div, and inside this blue container I am now creating container. So by now you should understand that I am making use of the container that I have created earlier on before. but it is not a sub container to the blue container, meaning that I have the opportunity of giving some size to a blue container, and it will then affect the container as a whole. Meanwhile, the container itself maintains the original size that it has before. So you are going to be learning some little bit of approach here. So that's on that. Now, what do we want to create? Take a very good look at it. We have this blue background area, and you can think of this blue background area as a boundary that has this kind of shape. So coming up with this kind of shapes can be done in one of two ways. First, you can go to CorelDRAW, create this kind of shapes, export it as SVG, and import it into your web browser as a background image. Okay, and that is very simple and straightforward. So you can try that if you know how to work with CorelDRAW or some Adobe Illustrator program. But I'm not going to be using that techniques over here, because we want to stick to what we are doing, and that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. With CSS, you can really come up with all these kind of shapes, and when we get down to CSS, you will get the opportunity to see that. But for now, we are only concentrating our effort on the content that you'll be seeing on the page and not the design. Okay, so having said that, you should also know that I will be able to get this kind of shape by applying some styles to the blue container. Meanwhile, the container will contain the content. Have I not done it this way, I won't be able to make the container to look like this, because if I do so, it will also affect the container that I have used at the top here. Okay, so that's the reason why I have decided to make use of blue container, so that I can give some attribute that will make the background to look like this, and it will not affect the container because the container maintains its own attribute. But if I have done it on the container, it will of course affect all of this one because they are also inside container. I hope you understand what I am trying to explain over there. So right now, we will just concentrate on this icon, the paragraph below it, which of course are the content that we want to create, and when we get down to CSS, we continue our journey on how it will look exactly like this. Okay, so having said those, now let's create our unordered list, because we are going to be making use of unordered list to complete the exit. So over here we are going to create an unordered list, and you can see that inside those, you can think of this icon and this paragraph below it as one item, followed by the next icon and the paragraph below it as another item, followed by the third one. So you can think of all of this as separate items, and for that reason they will occupy different items on our unordered list tag. So without wasting much time, I am creating an unordered list, and in my unordered list I want to make sure that I have the li for the first item, and inside the first item, the first thing you see here is a picture, which of course serves as my icon over there. So, and that is going to be the first thing that I am going to create. So remember, you make use of your img tag to quickly come up with search, and followed by the path to where the image can be found. And remember that we have all of our assets inside the images folder, so you can over here signify that you are going to images folder. Then the name of the picture we are linking to is going to be briefcase.svg, and you can quickly test if the path is correct by holding down the control key if you are on Windows operating system and click on the image.briefcase. Then you can see that we did get something back, even though it's not an image, but that's the SVG, because SVG stands for vector images. Okay, so over here in the alternates, you want to make sure that you put some alternate word in case the picture does not get the opportunity to show due to one reason or the other. So once you have this calendar icon, then you can be rest assured that something somehow went wrong and you couldn't get your image. Okay, so after the image, then the next thing we have are these paragraphs over here. So I'm going to be creating the paragraph tag with the p tag. Okay, and then we are going to type some things over here. So you can do some copy here, Ctrl C, and put Ctrl V over here to paste it. So you can be rest assured that we have our first item in the list completed. Then you can now graduate to the second item in the list. Okay, so moving on to the second item, the very first thing you want to do is to link up to this image over here, and you want to of course do that by making use of img tag, just as you have done in the previous one. Okay, so over here we are going to be linking to application.svg, and remember all of our assets are inside images folder. So I am linking on to application.svg, and keeping up to the status quo, you also want to make sure that you type some things here which will help us to signify that there is an issue that makes the picture not to get displayed. Okay, then the next thing you want to do is to create a paragraph that will be under the picture. So you want to highlight those things, hit Ctrl C if you're on Windows operating system, and hit Ctrl V to paste it. Okay, so moving on to the last item on the list, you want to create img tag once again. Then you want to link up to the image. Okay, so images, remember we are inside images folder, and if you observe, the second and the third item have the same images. So without wasting much of our time, just link to application.svg, and keeping up to the status quo, you want to make sure that you put some things in the alternate here, just to make sure that everything goes fine, and if not, you get the opportunity of seeing the alternate image. Okay, so then the last one, you want to create the paragraph just as before, and you want to hit Ctrl C, and you want to come down here and hit Ctrl V if you are on Windows operating system, and that marks the end of my blue container. And if you hit on Ctrl S, remember we are making use of live server, so you do not need to refresh. So hit Ctrl S to save. Then you can see all that we have done. So if you scroll down over here, you can see the first image followed by the paragraph below it, second image followed by the paragraph below it, and by now you start wondering, is this what we are going to go with? No, what we are doing at this point in time is to make sure that we have our basic structures. Okay, after which we can dedicate all our effort on the designs, where we make use of our PLCSS. Okay, all those things you have learned in the past, the flexbox and co, that is where we make use of them in total. Okay, so I haven't completed this blue container, then the lecture is going to come to the end over here, and you will meet me in the next lecture where we are going to be working on the gray container. Okay, and if you observe the gray container, unlike the blue container, it has this rounded image where some of your clients can get the opportunity of broadcasting their pictures included with the little infos on what they have to offer to the entire world. Okay, so in my next lecture I will be moving you on to the gray container, where you design this rounded image, the picture inside it, and the paragraph that the client is saying, after which we move down to the footer, and that will mark the end of our HTML basic structures for this new project. Then we can now move on to our CSS. So till then, I will be meeting you in my next lecture, and I want to once again thank you for attending this lecture and staying up to the end of this lecture. So meet me in the next lecture. Thank you. Good day and welcome to another lecture on web application development, and today we are going to start exactly from where we stop. Okay, and if you remember very well, in our last lecture we did complete the blue container section. Okay, so right now we are going to be moving to another section in our HTML documents, and this is going to be, we are going to title it the gray container. So the gray container is what we are going to design at this point in time, but I want you to pay attention to something. Remember, when we are starting up, we did started with this div of container, and if you scroll down, this is the end of that container. Okay, good. Then we begin another container which we call the blue container, and if you scroll down, this is the end of the blue container. So you must make sure that the blue container did comes to an end before you begin another container. And at this point in time, I'm creating another separate container, which of course I'm going to be calling the gray container. but make sure that you do not create this container inside the blue container. It should be separate. Okay, so this is the the gray container, and inside the gray container I will of course be creating another container inside it, and it's going to be the dot container, just as we did in our last lecture. So now let us take a look at the gray container and see what we have inside it. Now we have this rounded image inside it, then we have the name of the client, and we have the paragraph which depicts what the client is trying to say. And observe one thing: if we are on the medium view, look at how the gray container behaves. You can see the gray container behaves in such a way that it takes advantage of the extra space that we have, because we are now in the medium viewport. Okay, but if you are in the mobile viewport, then it also take advantage of more space that we have vertically. And if you are in the desktop viewport, then you will also observe that we have a great margin between the two. Okay, that's exactly what we are going for. But without wasting much of our time, we will begin from the mobile first approach. Remember, we are designing this for mobile. Okay, so haven't completed the mobile, we can then begin by asking ourselves the questions of how do you want it to look at the medium, and how do you want it to look at the large viewport. Okay, so at this point, let's begin our approach by working with the mobile first, then we can now proceed. Now we are about to create the basic structure for the HTML, and the very first thing that we come in here is our image. Remember that the image comes first. Okay, then if you look at our gray container, you will discover again that we have how many items inside it. We have this and we have this, so making 2 items, and because we are treating them as item, then we want to make sure that we make use of the unordered list. So for that reason, what we are going to create first is going to be UL, standing for our unordered list, from where we can now create our first list item. And inside the first list item, we can now add the img, which depicts the pictures we are of the client that you are going to be showing to them. Okay, so I haven't said that I will be introducing you to another HTML component here before the img tag, and it is called figure. So it's an HTML5 component, and inside the figure I am creating the img, and inside the img I want to make sure that I put the path to where the picture can be found, and the picture in this case is going to be user1. Okay, of course you can decide to call it client1, and if you hold down your control key if you are on Windows operating system and click on this path, it will just show you the picture that we are putting on our web browser, and this is the picture in this case. Okay, so you can be rest assured that your path is correct. Okay, so over here you can put some information here, maybe client1, something like that, in case the picture do not show due to one reason or the other. Okay, so I haven't put the picture there. Then the next thing I want to put over here is going to be the name of the client in my case. So I will be using block quote, which of course is another HTML5 tag that we are going to be using. So the block quote over here, we can put the name, and in this case I am putting Olatayo Yusuf. Okay, so that's the name of the first client. So the picture comes first, followed by the name. Then we can now follow it by what the clients have to say, and I'm going to introduce you to another HTML5 tag, which is fig caption. Okay, sorry, I have double I here. Okay, so inside the fig captions, then we can now put what the clients have to say, and I'm going to hit on Ctrl C and hit on Ctrl V over here if you are on Windows operating system. Okay, let me leave some extra space, and now you can see what we are doing. Okay, so this mark the ends for the user 1, which of course is not bad at all. And if you head straight back to our work, remember we are making use of the live server. So the moment I hit on Ctrl S to save my job, then the live server refresh without you having to waste your effort. And if you scroll down, then you can see our gray container coming into play here, and this is the picture followed by the block quotes, then followed by the fake caption over here, and that marks the end of the first item that we have in the class of container under gray container. Okay, so I'm going to create another list item, and without wasting much of my time, I can make a selection over here and duplicate it. So once you select, if you're on Windows or OS, you can hold down your shift key with the alternate key and press the down arrow key to duplicate what you have just highlighted, and that's exactly what I did in this case. Okay, so then you can now be changing some few things. So over here I'm linking to image, user tool image, and putting tool over here as well. Okay, so and that is going to be what we have inside the gray container. And if you scroll down over here, you would see that we do not have more than that. Okay, and that is going to mark the end of my gray container. So the gray container, once again, just have the gray background with the pictures of the clients included with what they have to say and their name, and that marks the end of the gray container HTML basic structure. Before we then move to the CSS to add the design and make it look extremely beautiful. So having said all of those, now what is the next thing? Okay, the next thing is the start your free trial now and the get starter button, which of course is a rounded image button with a blue with a green background. So at this point I'm going to stop the lecture here, just because we are done with the gray background HTML basic structure. Okay, then in my next lecture we're going to be moving into another container that is going to house the start free trial now and also the get starter button. Okay, so thank you for staying up to the end of this lecture, and you meet me in my next lecture. Thank you. God bless you. Welcome to the final part of our lecture on the basic structure of our HTML before we then move into the CSS. Okay, so remember this is our final project on HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So right now this is going to be the concluding part on the basic structure of the HTML that we are trying to design. So this is going to, so what we are going to be looking at over here is this last two: start your free trial, get starter, then followed by this footer. So I'm going to regard this container over here as the footer. Okay, and this one I'm going to create a separate container for it. So meanwhile, the footer and the header will be repeated on almost all of the pages that you are going to be creating for this project. Okay, but the start your free trial now and get started is not going to be part of the footer, just because it won't be on another page, but it's going to be on our home page. And for that reason, I'm going to create a separate container for the get starter. Then I will now create a footer container for the last part over here. So without wasting much of our time, let's head straight to the container class. But before then, let me quickly point something important to you. If you click on the gray container over here and you scroll down, you will discover that this is the end of the gray container. So take note of that, because you are not to create this new container inside of the gray container. You should make sure that the gray container has been closed before you move ahead and create another separate container. And this container is going to be for the start your free trial and the get starter button. Okay, so the start your free trial, you can see it's very thick and big, and for that reason I'm going to make use of the html2 tag. And inside the html2 tag, you are free to type your start your free trial now. Okay, and immediately after the html2 tag, it was followed by this button here. Okay, and I'm going to be making use of a link tag for that, the anchor tag for that. So of course I won't be bothered now with where it is linked to, and for that reason I will move straight to the content of the anchor tag, and it's going to be get started. Okay, and that is what we are going to have. But before then, you should make sure that you give it a class, because we really need to fine-tune the class such that it looks extremely beautiful as what we have here. And for that reason, I am going to give it a class of the CTA, something like this. Okay, so we're giving it this, and this is going to be our get started button. Okay, so then I want to believe I am done with the container that is describing the start your free trial now and also the get started. And for that reason, I will make sure that the container gets closed before I then create my footer container. And here I'm introducing you to another HTML5 component, and it's going to be footer. Okay, so inside the footer, you're going to be creating another div, and I'm going to be giving that div a class of footer dash container. Okay, so inside the footer dash container, what do we have there? If you take a very good look at it, we have just two informations over here. And if you increase your browser to the desktop view, you would see that what we have is positioned at the center, and we do not have any image over there. Okay, but I would prefer that we have our logo in there as well, and for that reason I'm going to be making use of a tag. And inside the a tag over here, you can put hash here just to denote that it's not linking to anywhere at this point in time. And you make use of your img tag, then you supply images followed by logo, maybe .svg, something like that. Okay, because we already have this. Okay, so having said that, then you can now be rest assured that you have your logo, and you are going to give it a class. You're going to give it a class of logo. Okay, then I'm given it a class of logo, so you want to move ahead and create a paragraph over here, and that is what we have a Moriso play, something like that. So you are free to just put anything you would want over there in the paragraph. So I'm creating the paragraph tag over here, and I'm going to give the paragraph a class of address. Then we can style it in our CSS. Okay, so you're free to just put anything you would really want over here. Okay, then haven't done this, you want to put the terms and condition over here. So I'm introducing you to the UL, then I'm giving it a class of footer links, and that's going to be where we have our links. So LIA, which of course stands for our anchor tag. Then you want to put terms of service or services, any which way. So then you want to hold down the alternate and the shift key, press the down arrow key to quickly duplicate, and over here I'm going to put privacy policy here. Privacy policy, something like this. Then you can hit your Ctrl S to save your job. Remember, we are making use of live server tool. So once you hit your Ctrl S to save the job and scroll down, then you can see this is the logo and this is our footer, and that marks the end of our HTML structure for the project at hand. Okay, then if you take a very good look at what we have so far, you will discover that our contents are now completed on the page. The only lapses as at now is they are not really looking the way we want. Okay, so most of your web projects, you will begin this way. Then you can now head straight to your style.css and begin to fine-tune it to your taste. But do not forget, when we get to style.css, our approach is to make sure that we are using the mobile first approach. So everything we are going to be designing, we will make sure that it looks extremely beautiful for mobile devices, after which we fine-tune it and make it to be extremely beautiful for medium devices, and followed by the large devices. Okay, an example of laptop and desktop computers. Okay, so here you would not be learning what you have already learned before, but you will get the opportunity to work with the mobile first approach. Then you will also get the opportunity to see how you can make your CSS to work with to come up with different creative shapes, such that you do not need to make use of your vector graphics softwares like Adobe Illustrator and CorelDRAW to come up with vector images. So over here I'm going to be showing you how you can make use of CSS to merge series of images together to come up with a very beautiful and realistic images like we have on the screen over here. Okay, so you will be learning that when we get down to CSS, and you will also be learning media queries extensively, where you are going to be purely designing for mobile devices, larger devices and medium devices. Okay, and that is going to be media query. Then you will also be learning JavaScript, where you will purely be attaching some events to the click event to some button, especially your menu buttons here. So you will be learning JavaScript, and that of course is going to come extremely easy for you just because you have learned JavaScript with me. Okay, so and lastly you would also be learning animations, WebKit animations in CSS, where you get the opportunity to make something like this. Like, you can see the way it was easy in and easy out while jumping down and up. Okay, so you will get your first attempt to work with animation in CSS, and these are all you should expect in my next lecture on CSS while we complete the final project on your front end design, before we then move to working with framework, something like Vue.js. But we won't be doing that until you complete your back-end design. Remember, our aims and objective at the start of this training is to make you a full stack developer. So I want to once again thank you for completing this lecture, and I really want to congratulate you for staying tuned up to the end. And I want you to know that I have supplied you almost every resource that you need at your disposal. So the best you should do is to come up with exactly something that I am doing, and this will really aid you to master the techniques that I used over here, after which I will urge you to come up with a project of your own. But at this point in time, you should know that front-end design is very important, and we have really spent a whole lot of time on front-end design. Okay, and we will still continue throughout your journey in web application development, but for now we really have to shift our attention to back-end development, and for that reason we will quickly round up with our CSS knowledge and JavaScript. Then you move straight forward to your back-end development. So once again, thank you for staying tuned up to the end of this lecture. I look forward to meet you in my next lecture. God bless you.